This is a short last-minute episode of Silicon Bites, but one on an absolutely essential topic: mass murder by Moscow. The July 31st, 2025 drone and missile assault on Kyiv was one of the most substantial and devastating of the war. It was also entirely indiscriminate and purely targeted at civilians. We'll break this down: the scope of the attack, its human toll, the increasing difficulty of interception, voices calling out from Ukraine, and what the implications are for dealing with Russia that has now cemented its identity as a terror state, the Al-Qaeda of the European continent. In the early hours of July 31st, Russia unleashed one of the deadliest aerial assaults on Kyiv since the war began. Over 300 drones initially were counted and 8 Iskander K cruise missiles, but according to Ukraine's Air Force, later that count rose to 539 drones and 11 missiles targeting the capital. Air raid sirens blared for hours, while explosions shattered sleep and infrastructure. President Zelensky described it as a deliberately massive and cynical attack. The human cost, devastating consequences. Initial reporting ranged from 6 to 16 deaths, including a 6-year-old boy. By the evening of August the 1st, Ukraine's State Emergency Service confirmed 31 people killed, including children aged 2, 6, and 17. At least 159 wounded, 16 children among them. Rescue teams recovered more than 2,000 tons of rubble. Over 1,200 emergency personnel were deployed. In photos by United 24 Media, the devastation is stark. A children's toy ruined in mud, a mother collapsing with grief, steel stairwells buckled, and shelters overwhelmed. Intercepting the swarm, the rising technological challenge. Ukraine's Air Force intercepted and jammed 288 drones and 3 missiles, but still 5 missiles and 21 drones breached the defences and struck targets. That's consistent with reports of 478 intercepts out of over 540 airborne threats, yet even a small number getting through causes immense tragedy. This volume places enormous strain on Ukrainian radars, ammunition, personnel, and underscores growing gaps in air defense capability. As drones and missiles become cheaper, faster, and more plentiful, defenders face a mounting problem: overwhelming saturation attacks that stretch air defense systems to breaking point. And indeed, Russia is experimenting with new tactics that are designed to get around existing practices and defenses. Some voices have called out, including Kellogg's daughter, and others have spoken up. A notably clear moral voice comes from Megan Mobbs, daughter of US envoy Keith Kellogg. On June 31st, she tweeted, "Kyiv is under massive drone attack. Make no mistake. This is Putin's response to President Trump's deadline. He is testing American resolve and strength. We must not be found wanting." But this was not random terror. Instead, it was political signaling. Moscow daring Washington to back down, laughing in their faces, in fact, mocking with blood and lives. President Zelensky and his team condemned the assault as state terrorism, demanding urgent Western military aid and sanctions. US and European officials expressed shock, and comments from leaders seem to recognize the escalation of Moscow's attacks, and it is claimed that efforts to supply more Patriot systems and resupply Ukraine with air defense missiles are underway. Russia's drones are inexpensive, mass-produced, and numerous, designed to overwhelm. Ukrainian systems intercept many, yet some inevitably slip through. Western military pauses in air defense shipments, especially US hesitancy, only worsens the outlook. Germany's efforts to buy Patriot systems signals a gap in availability, and long lead times for new production mean that Kyiv remains exposed, and this will exact a high toll on the city's civilian lives. And there is a wider pattern of escalating drone warfare. This attack fits a dismal record. In June 25, Russia launched over 5,438 drones and more than 330 missiles at Ukrainian territory. On 17th of June, a single strike destroyed a 9-story block in Kyiv, killing 28 and injuring over 100. Kyiv has endured repeated waves. March's attack killed a 5-year-old and her father, among others. April's missile and drone barrage killed 12 and wounded nearly 90, the deadliest since mid-2023. July's 3rd to 4th attacks was the peak. Targets across nearly every district, massive fires, destruction of homes, schools, medical centres, parks, railway infrastructure, and consular buildings. What the casualties reveal, this is that people are not collateral damage. This is a calculated terror strategy. A child's room shattered, families displaced, rescuers wading through steel and concrete. These scenes underscore Moscow's brazen willingness to strike civilians. Kyiv has declared an official day of mourning as grief becomes a civic ritual. Children aged 2 and 6 are among the dead. Psychologists attending to over 100 traumatized survivors. This assault reveals Russia's strategy: continuous terror bombings, crippling civilian infrastructure, eroding societal will. It's delusional, however, to think that this will convince Ukrainians to give up, and it's pathological for Russia to continue the attacks when they deliver no tangible signs of succeeding. Ukraine demands not words but weapons to counter this growing threat. They need surface-to-air missiles, radars, shelters, international sanctions. The West's response must be immediate and robust, not tentative and protracted, as it has been throughout these 3 years. We must demand action, lifting delays, escalating aid, punishing Moscow economically, arming Ukraine fully. Otherwise, this repeated terror of the 31st of July will become the nightly norm.